Who's actually going to get the most out of a Skutt KM 1027LL kiln with the shelf kit, Envirovent, and rolling sand? Who should walk away before they even plug it in? And does the price make sense for the everyday potter who just wants a reliable place to fire a batch of mugs without breaking the bank? Those are the three questions I keep hearing in the comments whenever a new kiln pops up on the market. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, because I know a lot of you want to see the exact specs before you decide. In this video, I'm going to walk through the real-world experience of setting up this machine, the hidden trade-offs that only show up after the first firing, and whether the extra accessories actually add value or just pad the price tag. First off, let's talk about why the Skutt style LL line has become a go-to for many small studios. The KM1027 is a 27-inch wide, 20-inch high electric kiln that can handle a decent volume of wear in one go, big enough for a medium-sized batch of plates or a stack of bisque pieces, but still compact enough to fit in a typical garage or a modestly sized studio corner. The LL in the name stands for low loss, which essentially means the insulation is a higher density material that keeps heat where it belongs. In practice, that translates to a more consistent temperature curve and less energy waste. For someone who fires 3 to 4 times a week, that consistency can shave a few dollars off the electricity bill over a year. Now, the kit you're looking at isn't just the kiln. Skutt throws in a 3-piece shelf system, the Envirovent venting kit, and a bag of rolling sand. On paper, that sounds like a full-service solution, but the real question is whether each piece integrates smoothly or ends up as an extra step you need to learn. In my own setup, the shelf kit was a real time saver. The pre-drilled slots line up perfectly with the kiln's interior ribs, so you can stack 3 shelves without having to custom cut or shim anything. That means you can separate glaze firing from bisque firing in the same load, which is a huge practical advantage if you're trying to keep a tight production schedule. The Envirovent, on the other hand, is where most newcomers run into a hiccup. It's a forced air exhaust system that requires a dedicated vent pipe and a nearby electrical outlet for the fan. If your studio already has a vent line running through the wall, installation is a weekend project. If not, you're looking at an extra $150 to $200 for a proper vent cap and possibly a contractor's help to cut a hole in the wall. Skipping the Envirovent isn't an option for safety reasons. The kiln is required to vent its combustion gases, even though it's electric, because the glass fiber insulation can release fine particles when it heats up. So the hidden trade-off is the extra planning and potential cost of proper ventilation. Let's talk about the rolling sand. Skutt includes a bag of this fine, non-conductive sand so you can level the kiln on uneven floors. I've seen a few users try to set the unit on a concrete slab without any shims and end up with an uneven temperature distribution across the chamber. The sand is essentially a cheap way to level the kiln without buying a custom concrete pad. In my case, I spread a thin layer, tap the kiln into place, and the temperature probe read within 2 degrees across the top and bottom shelves, good enough for most functional wear. If you already have a perfectly level floor, the sand is just a nice bonus. If you don't, it becomes a necessary part of the setup. So, who should actually buy the Skutt KM 1027LL with this bundle? The sweet spot is a hobbyist or a professional potter who fires at least twice a week, needs a reliable temperature hold, and has a dedicated space for a vent line. The kit's inclusion of shelves means you can start firing immediately without hunting for aftermarket accessories, and the low-loss insulation gives you a more predictable firing curve, which is especially important for glazes that sit on a narrow temperature window. If you run a small studio and charge for each piece, the ability to fire larger batches without sacrificing uniformity can translate directly into higher profit margins. On the flip side, if you're an occasional weekend crafter who only fires once a month, the upfront cost of the kiln plus the extra expenses of venting and potentially leveling might outweigh the benefits. You could get away with a smaller, more portable kiln that doesn't require a permanent vent. Also, if you live in an apartment building or a rented space where you can't modify walls, the Envirovent requirement becomes a deal breaker. In those scenarios, a smaller tabletop kiln or a studio that offers shared firing space would be a smarter move. Now for the practical strengths that stand out after a few weeks of use. First, heat-up time. The KM1027 reaches 1100 F in roughly 45 minutes, which is quicker